Welcome to Jackson Reviews, the channel where I go through the best and worst horror movies so you don't have to. I'm Sam Jackson, and today we're going to be ranking the entire Friday the 13th franchise, all the way from the original to the remake. Some of my choices here are going to be highly disliked, and I would just like to ask people just to respect my opinion, because that's all it is at the end of the day. And honestly, I like to do and watch these ranking videos to basically see other people's opinions too, because, you know, if we all liked the exact same films, and this would be pretty boring, and we'd only really get to like 2 films in the franchise. I would also like to state that the ones I choose low, it's not because I overly dislike them, it's just the Friday films, because they're quite similar a lot of the time. It's difficult to say which ones are worse and which ones are better, because there's not a lot of difference in, especially like the first 5 movies. So don't get too mad at me for my number 12, even though I know people really are. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's start ranking these films. At number 12, I know already people are going to dislike, because I could tell that by the dislikes on my video review of it, but last is part 5, A New Beginning. Now, a lot of this just falls down to the fact the film's boring. It's the exact same stuff we'd seen before, and I haven't actually got an issue with the fact Jason's not the killer. I thought it was a really cool concept, but Rory sucks. And also, I'd say the characters are bland. A lot of the kills are watered down to fuck and just a bit boring, with the only exception being those 2 kills after that weird sex scene. And there's so much random tit, it's forced, it's basically porn, and it makes no real sense to be in the movie. It's just a bit creepy. I will openly acknowledge though that the new version of Tommy is awesome as hell, and I'm glad that they kind of kept similar to that with part 6. And just a couple of the other survivors, such as Pam and Reckless Reggie. And I also quite liked Edith, like, she was great, and those 2 kills, like I mentioned earlier, they were good and I enjoyed them, but just so many parts of this movie just fall apart for me, and I'm sorry. At number 11, even though I'd want to rate this higher after my actual review of it, it's Jason Goes to Hell. Now, this movie has a shit ton of issues, especially when it comes to its plot, but its actual kills and some of the characters are quite fun and interesting, and I do want to acknowledge that. But when your plot is the main point of the movie and it sucks ass and Jason turns into a weird slug monster that looks straight out of one of the bad Puppet Master movies, you have real problems. Another issue for me was just the fact that this is New Line's first movie, and they showed us it didn't really give a fuck, and they just wanted to make some money. And that's a problem, that's a real problem. Will say though, Duke is bare. At number 10, once again, I'd kind of want to rate this higher upon a bit more like thinking, but it's a 2009 remake. The main issue for this is generally the characters. They're fucking awful. And a lot of the plot of this movie is just, it is literally a remake of parts 2 to 4, except duller. When you're trying to cram 3 like stories into a movie, it doesn't work. Look at the movie adaptation of a series of unfortunate events, for crying out loud. And just so many other just small issues with just the kills being copied. There's way too much random obsessive nudity in this film. And honestly, I don't know who the final girl was, and I didn't really care because they tried to kill off some plot twist. And at the end, Jason comes to life, even though he's not supernatural in this film, and it's a bit dumb. But I will also state that the new version of Jason is fucking terrifying. I love it. I really wish that they made a sequel to this that was a bit more of an improvement, because I would have really liked to see that new version of Jason again, and honestly, it's quite a shame that they didn't. I don't know if there's ever going to be another film, or if there isn't, but I really hope there is, and they continue this version of Jason. At number 9, I really want to rate this lower if it wasn't for the last 30 minutes, but it's Freddy vs. Jason. Now, the dumb, horrible characters really drag this film to the shitter, and the fact that they force this extra plot Fred with like Laurie's mum or whatever is just so bad and so obviously shoved in for time. I'd also just like the terrible like Jason actor in it, the really crap like stilted kills, and just the overall feeling of the movie from director Ronnie Yu just being a little bit crap. But those last 30 minutes are just badass as hell, and honestly, that is the actual Freddy vs. Jason fight is the only reason why it's so high, otherwise it would be the bottom of the list. At number 8, going into the more average / mediocre movies, there's honestly none that are more average than what was meant to be the best film, which was Friday the 13th Part 7, A New Blood. I'm not going to say that this movie is bad, because it's not. It kind of has its bad points and its good points balance each other out, but the bad's just that little bit more because some of the good stuff, we'd already seen it before and done way better. I mean, basically the entire setting is exactly the same as Part 4, where you've got the family dynamic going on in one house, and then you've got the teens partying in the house that's right next to it, which is random in the middle of a lake. Why are these two houses just right next to each other for no real reason? Again. And a lot of the characters just dull, so uninteresting, and it just makes me want to fall asleep whilst watching them, with the only interesting characters being on that side of the house and Trisha's boyfriend or some shit. And also, once again, the dead dad drags Jason down into the lake and then disappears. Why the fuck is that a thing? But the Jason vs. Carrie stuff, similar to how the Freddy vs. Jason stuff was great. Tina beats the shit out of Jason, and I love that. And I also love the fact this is Ken Hodder's first time as Jason, and he did really well in the role. And number 7, once again going straight for the middle of the road, is Part 2. Now, I like Part 2, and there's not particularly anything wrong with it. It's just a kind of Friday movie that you stick on when there's nothing else to watch, instead of one you actually want to be engaged in. Nothing's that new apart from the character of Ginny and obviously Jason being the killer. Everything else is basically a carbon copy of the first movie and just a little bit duller. The kills aren't as interesting as the first one, the characters aren't as interesting as the first one, and the characters in the first one aren't very interesting to begin with. And Jason's not got the hockey mask, which is honestly one of his main selling points. And I understand that that wasn't a concept by this point in the film, but after watching the others, it does knock it down a little bit. And like I said, I do enjoy this film, and I don't want to slag it off, but it's just a bit dull and repetitive, and I'm sorry. And number 6, and I can definitely see I'm getting some dislikes now, is the original Friday the 13th. Talking about the first movie is difficult because it's basically a Halloween clone, but a lot more boring and just a bit sleazier. Halloween is that pinnacle slasher film. It is the slasher film, basically. And Friday the 13th obviously tried to take that formula and do its own thing with it, but it didn't really do too well. The characters throughout the movie are kind of boring. None of them that interesting. Not even Alice, who's meant to be our final girl. I openly wanted Alice to die during that movie because I really couldn't stand her. And the whole movie basically sums around this whodunit kind of idea, a little bit how Friday the 13th Part 5 does, but how can it be a whodunit if you haven't introduced the character until the last 15 minutes? And then the actual showdown isn't that interesting when you rewatch it until the very last moment. I can't actually rate it any lower. This movie did so much, even though it was a copy movie. There's so many other franchises I have just behind me here that are so influenced by Friday the 13th. Even to some extent stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street and some of the later Halloween movies were influenced by Friday the 13th. The entire Sleepaway Camp franchise, which is about there-ish, I have, they're basically a copy of Friday the 13th, and I love those movies, even the really terrible sequels. And none of that would exist without Friday, and I think it has to be acknowledged how important this movie really is. And number 5 is Jason Takes Manhattan, and I know I'm going to get some huge dislikes here, having this movie be higher than the original. But as I already explained in my review, there's so many positives to this movie which no one looks at. I agree that the movie's title was massively false advertising, and I would have liked it more if they split the movie in two, which had an extra half an hour of the movie just beyond the Lazarus. And then that leads into the next movie, which could have been Part 9, where Jason actually takes Manhattan. But I honestly don't see what a lot of the hate is for. I mean, some parts of the idea is stupid, like the toxic waste stuff and the ghost Jason, but the overall kills, even though they're not bloody, they're greatly done. And obviously they were trying to appeal to the MPAA, and they did well with that. And they did the least bloody kills in the franchise, and some of the scariest until the remake. A lot of the characters are fun and interesting, and they're pretty great to watch kills. And the Lazarus is brand new, it's a new area to explore, and it looks awesome. And I honestly really liked the Lazarus setting. And let's just be honest here, this movie gave us Jason walking around Times Square. One of the most iconic shots in the whole franchise, and I love that. And number 4 is coincidentally Part 4 with Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which is not so the final chapter. Honestly, the only reason why this movie isn't ranked higher is because there's 3 movies I love more than this film. I actually can't find too many problems with Part 4. The kills. Got some great kills in that. The characters, a lot of them are fun, and they're very interesting to watch die, let's be honest. It has a great sibling dynamic and a natural plotline throughout the whole thing. It follows directly on from the events, and it is basically the end of the first half of the franchise before it's loosely rebooted for both parts 5 and 6. And, you know, you've got Tommy Jarvis introduction, and you've got the great Jason death, so you've just got so many good things of this movie. And honestly, the only reason it's not ranked higher is a little bit because the false title again of the final chapter, when, let's be honest, Paramount said that they were, but they were never intending to end this until it lost them money, because that's basically why they ended up cancelling the franchise in the long run. Once again, at number 3 is Part 3, and people are probably wondering why I've ranked this higher than Part 4, and it's honestly, I don't know, really. I just really enjoy this film. As I mentioned earlier with Part 2, that's a film you just watch when you just need to put something on. With this one, this is a movie I've always engaged with. I love Chris Higgins as like the character, and she's honestly my favourite final girl in the whole franchise. I love the fact that like Jason is just so kind of cheeky in this movie, like after he shoots whatever she's called in the face, and he just walks away like, huh, I did that. There's just so many little nice things, and the little homages to the first one I quite like. The backstory that explains like what happened between the time of Alice being killed at the beginning of Part 2 all the way to the main part of the movie in Part 2 with that little thing with Chris, and I really enjoyed all that stuff and I thought it was interesting. And obviously the kills are great, except for one. At Part 2, I'm really hoping for dislikes now apparently, and it's Jason X. I've gone into detail about this just 2 weeks ago. Jason X is great. It's everything I want, it's my kind of humour. I really though do understand why people dislike this movie, and you are 100% entitled to, but I'm also 100% entitled to like this film, just saying. Jason in space, what more do you want? It's great. And finally, for my number 1, Jason Lives. You can't get a more perfect Friday movie than this. And Jason X is a pretty perfect, like, Friday the 13th movie, but it's got that one thing missing, and that's Camp Crystal Lake. This movie has that in droves. You have the best characters in the series, you have the second best Jason actor in the series, you've got some of the most awesome kills in the series, which once again aren't very bloody, but still really good. You've got like the showdown between Tommy and Jason, which would actually later be loosely homaged for the Freddy vs. Jason stuff, and there's just so many parts of this movie which I love. And it was technically, if I remember correctly, the last time that Jason officially killed someone at Camp Crystal Lake until the crossover, but don't quote me on that, because I don't know if you count the 2 people on the boat on Part 8 as it, but oh well. But no, Jason Lives, for me, is the perfect Friday movie, and I love it. If I had to get rid of 11 out of the 12 movies, even though I love Jason X, I love Part 3, and I love just so many of the others, this is the one I'd want to keep. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now, next week, we're finally going to be going through the actual things. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you disagreed with me, let's be honest, you've already disliked the video, so thank you for that. And I will see you all next week. Goodbye.